Happy Earth Day, teacher friend. Today we're tossing out the worksheets, but don't worry, we're keeping the learning. In this episode, I'll share 3 tried and true Earth Day friendly swaps for your content areas that keeps your students engaged and your standards front and center. These ideas are creative, SEL friendly, and most importantly, totally paperless. And we're also going to go tech free. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. Today, I'm excited to share with you a wonderful review from L Trask 14. She says, Elizabeth does a great job with information, ideas, and techniques to use to incorporate many different ideas into the classroom, from SEL techniques to building relationships to incorporating music and creativity in the classroom. These are ideas for teachers of any age group. What a great review, and thank you so much. In fact, I think that these ideas that I'm going to share with you today can actually be for just about any age group. I've used them myself in as low as 2nd grade through 8th grade, which is the ages that I've taught with, and I can absolutely see these working perfectly for high school as well. If you're in the mood to go paperless, whether it's Earth Day or any day, these might be some ideas that you really want to give a try. Let's start with some good old-fashioned whiteboards. I'm talking about individual whiteboards that each student has. One of my favorite ways for students to practice their math facts is actually on whiteboards. Now, what I love to do when I'm teaching a math class and we have to do some drilling of math facts or math operations is to gather my students all at the rug so that I can see what they're doing, give everybody the same math equation, and let's say, for example, it's 3-digit plus 3-digit, and have them work on that one math problem until they're done with it. And I can kind of just keep an eye on everybody all at the same time. And then as students do it and finish it and get it correct, I will have a lineup of more equations on the whiteboard that's behind me and ask them to move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. Meanwhile, I can work with various students that, just need a little extra help and a little extra support. So what I can do is I'll use maybe a different color dry erase marker, and I can just mark up their board as they're working and just help them along. What I really like is that the kids in this situation are at my feet, and I can really just keep an eye on just about all of them. I might move certain kids to the next problem on the board and also at the same time continue working with those that just need that extra support. When kids are working on their own individual whiteboards, it really allows them to, work at their own pace. This is such an important thing for students to be able to do. But as opposed to them working at their desks, especially on worksheets, which of course we're going paperless right now, but instead of them working at their desk where I have to wander around and it might take another couple minutes for me to get to Susie Q over here who really needs assistance because I was just working with Jonatron over here who also needed assistance, I can actually huddle those two together on the rug and be able to see them and help them right then and there. While also giving, Herkimer, do you love my names? Oh my gosh. But while giving Herkimer over there the more advanced addition and allowing him to just keep on moving and pressing on as well. Little side note, if you want to know where all those names came from, each one of them has a story. You can go ahead and find me on Instagram and DM me the question, where did you get those names? And maybe I'll tell you the story. But for now, let's keep going with the whiteboards. Now, if you do have a pretty decent sized group of students who can really, kind of take this on their own, you can even move them to a different section of the classroom and ask them to give each other some math equations to work on and challenge each other, while you're, again, keeping those students who really need to walk through those problems together with you. Now, another reason why I love whiteboards is it can just be something that you ask the students to do on a whim. They can really do it pretty quickly, and from what I have discovered over the years, students love writing on whiteboards. So you might ask them to draw a visual model of a problem, maybe a bar model of some sort, a number line, an array. And to take it out of the whole idea of math, you can have students draw a character, write down adjectives, create a simple sentence, add words in to embellish a sentence. There's just so many things you can do with a whiteboard that you can just kind of do instead of a worksheet. What I love about when students are working on whiteboards in this way is that it really does have some SEL tie-ins. There's that idea of understanding what your strengths are and your weaknesses and being okay with getting a little extra help while someone else is moving on to something different. There's also this collaborative piece as well, especially if, you're drawing something and then another student next to you is drawing something, and you want to almost like give the opportunity or give the vibe inside your classroom for it to be okay to look at what someone else is doing and maybe use that to help you with what you're doing. I'm envisioning right now, like if someone is drawing a bar graph and they're having a hard time, they can quickly look at someone else's whiteboard and kind of see what they're doing and draw it somewhat similarly. And what I find is because it's not on a worksheet and it's actually on a whiteboard, there's less of that thinking that someone is actually copying you. There's less of that accusing of, oh, he's copying me. He's copying what I have. There's more of a community vibe when you can gather your students together and have them all work on their whiteboards. All right, let's move on to the second idea of how you can go paperless, and that is to act it out. Now, I'm going to focus in on ELA right now. Okay, so here's a different idea. You may need to wrap your head around it a little bit, but someone out there who's listening just might want to try this out. Okay, so after reading a story or a section of whatever it is that you're reading, instead of handing out a comprehension worksheet, invite your students to act out part of a scene. Summarize what they've read with a skit, or maybe perform a freeze frame tableau of a story's theme. You can give students roles or character traits to embody and present to the class. You can let them reflect out loud as they're acting out like one of the characters in the story, and ask them, how would your character feel in this situation? Or what is your character thinking? Or ask them, why did you say that in the story? Really allowing your students to embody the story that they are reading and that they're learning about can really give you an idea of if they have a good understanding of what is actually happening in the story. Now, acting like this and utilizing drama in the classroom, especially with your language arts curriculum, has so many natural tie-ins to social emotional learning. In fact, we talk so much about this idea of drama and language and stories with SEL in SEAL, social emotional artistic learning. It really helps students to build their empathy because they're literally putting themselves in another person, in this case, another character's shoes. And it gives them that ability to really walk in someone else's shoes and, kind of understand what the situation is that they're that they're inside the story, in the context of the story that they're reading. Now, doing something like this in your classroom might be a little bit of a, leap of faith for you, but you may just have the classroom, or you may just have a couple students who really thrive with this type of thing. I think I mentioned this in an earlier podcast episode about how I kind of on a whim, I kind of had it planned, but I was taking a chance with this one particular 4th grade class where I was going to ask them to act out a situation that we were then going to talk more about. And oh my goodness, there were a couple of students that really surprised me and were able to really show off quite a bit of talent to their classmates. It was really such a great moment. All right, let's move on to idea number 3. And for this, I'm going to focus in on science a little bit. And for this idea, I want to encourage you to try some movement in your class, which I know can be kind of scary to some teachers and to some students. And I'm going to offer an alternative to this as well, okay? Now, no tech, no worksheets, just hands-on, brains-on learning, okay? So let's think about when you may have a scientific process or concept that you want students to really show their understanding of. Let's scrap the worksheet, okay? Let's scrap the pencil and paper for right now. Of course, you could go and do this on a whiteboard too, but let's scrap those ideas and let's try some movement. Can you get your students to use their bodies to act out a scientific process or a science concept? Think about how students could mimic the water cycle or demonstrate plant growth through the stages from seed all the way to full-grown plant producing flowers and fruit, or acting like landforms that form over time, or maybe landforms that erode over time. I remember years ago, I want to say it was like in 2011, I had a class that absolutely thrived with movement-based activities. And that year, I had them doing all kinds of things. We were moving like math vocabulary, and we were moving so much in our science content as well. In fact, I have an amazing video. I'm going to link to it in the show notes that shows us actually dancing as a full class, dancing the water cycle. I think you're going to absolutely love it. Make sure you check that out. Now, if movement makes you nervous, that's okay. How about this instead? What if you could break out the modeling clay? Clay can be so much fun, right? Oh my gosh, the kids absolutely love it. And it can be such a special little thing that you do with them. So you could ask your students to create a 3D diagram, like the layers of the earth, or instead of labeling things with paper, drag out those whiteboards and have students lay their clay creations on top of their whiteboards and write labels on that point to the different parts that they've created with the clay. Or have you ever tried using dry erase markers to write on your desk? I did that one year. I even wrote a blog post about it. I'll link that in the show notes as well, where we had this entire lesson where I had students write on their desks, and they, oh my gosh, they absolutely loved it. That was back in, I was just looking up the blog post from 2010. Unfortunately, the pics got lost. I don't even know if I had my camera on my phone back then, so I couldn't find the pictures to go with that. But dry erase markers on top of your desks, it's like a showstopper. You might want to give that a try. Play and movement-based lessons, they require zero tech. I really wanted to give some options where kids were not behind a screen as well as not using paper for this episode. And let's face it, these are highly engaging, right? And they become memorable experiences for all kinds of learners as well. All right, so now it's your turn. I want you to pick one subject and try to go paperless for Earth Day. And if it's too late for Earth Day, try something paperless for this week. Maybe you swap out a worksheet for a whiteboard. Maybe you do a writing task as a skit instead. Or instead of a lecture, or instead of taking notes on a scientific process, have the students instead make a clay model or a movement demonstration. Now, if you dare, you could even go paperless the entire day. Who's going to pick me up on that challenge? That would be so fun. But whatever you choose, just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, just really intentional. That's how we start making learning really meaningful again. And let's face it, that's how we can keep inspiring our students and enjoying our teaching. Now, if you loved these ideas and want more ways to teach with purpose, with peace, and a dash of creativity, don't forget to sign up for my free class. I'll show you how to build a classroom culture that feels good for you and for your students. Head to theinspiredclassroom.com/class and let's start really building this together. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.